And welcome back to another COD Mobile video. So today we are going to be covering the Season 10 patch notes. So yes, we are basically on the cusp of the anniversary season, so I'm pretty excited about that. And by the way, I finally made it back home after my 3-day drill from my National Guard unit. So yes, I'm a little tired, I won't lie, but I still want to make this video anyways before I head to bed and just get ready for the new day. So before we actually begin with the patch notes, I do want to say that there was quite a bit of negative reception because, obviously people have been calling for more nerfs towards the USS 9. But for me, I would say that overall, this patch notes would be a net positive, at least for the weapons that are not being used as of late. And it seems like a lot of weapons in these past few seasons have been getting buffed appropriately to, I guess, combat the current meta that we do have right now. So starting with the first change, we do have the ISO. So the ADS bullet spread went from 2818 to 2513, which is a pretty substantial buff, at least when it comes to its accuracy. And that's actually one of the major complaints I've actually had with the ISO as of recently, because I have been using it quite a bit this season. But yes, the FSS Revolution barrel also got a bullet speed buff from 20% to 30%. I believe this might actually be the unsuppressed long range barrel, I assume. And the Forge Tack Ultralight also got an increased ADS movement speed buff from 15% to 22%. So they're trying to add a little bit more straight speed with this gun. For MK2, so they basically reduced the downsides of the vertical recoil and the horizontal recoil penalties for the Task Force barrel, making it a little bit more, I guess, usable. But again, I mean, the Peacekeeper recently just got a recoil buff, so a change like this isn't really going to matter. And speaking of changes that don't matter, we also have a Field Agent foregrip change which reduces ADS movement speed from 16% to 8% instead. So basically, you're going to be strafing, I guess, twice as fast, or at least a little bit faster when you use this attachment. But again, it's ultimately pointless because the Peacekeeper basically has almost no recoil anymore. And stacked with this new Task Force barrel buff, it's going to have even less recoil. So it's not really worth running an attachment like that. The AS10 also got a change to the no stock. It basically increased the ADS movement speed from 10% to 15%, as well as removing the 2% movement speed penalty for the 33 round extended mag. So again, they're trying to give this gun a little bit more movement speed when it comes to strafing, as well as just normal movement speed. So I would say this is overall a net positive for the ASM10. So the ICR got some pretty substantial changes. I would say it's probably one of the better changes for the patch notes. So the ICR YCAM integrated suppressor barrel got an increased multiplier from 1.1 times to 1.15 times to the lower arms, and a 38 round fast reload. They kind of reduced the magazine down to 38 instead of 40, but they also increased the upper arm multiplier when you use this attachment to 1.1 times. And for the macro mag IFS, which is the signature attachment for the weapon, it now increases the stomach multiplier from 1 times to 1.1 times. So basically what you have here is two different options. This basically gives you the ability to 3-tap more consistently, but by your own choice. So you could either have a faster mobility with a fast mag that could give you the ability to 3-tap on the lower arms as well as the upper arms, but of course you have to aim a little bit higher if you do use the integrated suppressor and the 38 round fast reload together. But you could also choose to have more consistency if you do want to aim lower with the macro mag IFS plus the YCAM integrated suppressor light. So it's kind of your choice how you want to 3-tap people. So I know a lot of people had some issues with this where they said that it would have been a better choice to just increase the multipliers on the normal gun itself. But I think the reason why they did this is because if they increased the multipliers on just the normal gun, it would have made it far more lethal because you can now use a marksman barrel or a ranger barrel with monolithic suppressor and basically 3-tap from basically anywhere on the map. So I think that's the reason why they made it so that it only gets increased on certain attachments to balance things out a little bit. And it doesn't really matter anyways. I mean, you could use the macro mag IFS to get that stomach multiplier. So you can increase your chances to 3-shot and still extend your range if you want to. But it's going to be a little bit inconsistent because usually the lower arm multipliers are usually what matters because, when you're, firing on someone there, you could usually hit the lower arms. So I think the integrated suppressor light is going to be one of the key attachments to make it really consistent. Of course, I will be testing this once the update comes out because it does seem to be very interesting. I want to see how I could make it as lethal as possible. However, I mean, you could still three tap up to, I think, about like 25 meters plus. So it is still possible to run like the YKM and the macro mag. And also, if you like run long shot as well, that might increase your range a bit more. So it's not like it's not going to be generous where it only lets you do it from like 10 meters. Like the ICR has some pretty considerable range. But yeah, I will be testing this. So keep that in mind. So now we got changed to the Holger 26. So on the second range, they did improve it from 24 meters to 30 meters. So basically, I think you're going to be able to four shot up to 30 meters or more, depending on how you want to, extend the range. But they also increased the bullet impact from 1.1 to 1.25. And the Holger 3060 lightweight polymer mag, which I believe is the small mag, but not the double stack, has a increased chest multiplier from 1 times to 1.1 times that gives you the ability to three tap at least in the first range. But of course, you could extend it to, I think, a little over 20 meters. So the potency is still pretty good. I'm sure a lot of you guys would probably run the monolithic suppressor, but I think now it doesn't really matter too much to run that. I mean, unless you want to like really, really shoot like across the universe. But I think 30 meters for any map is usually good enough. So the AS VAL got improved ADS spread from 23 to 27. So basically, that's a pretty great amount, especially for the AS VAL to be that accurate. And knowing that you could like add a lot more attachments to increase that accuracy, you could put this a little bit below like maybe 18, which is going to be pretty nice. And for the OWC skeleton stock, they also increased the ADS movement speed from 15% to 25%. So this is actually a pretty good change because I know some of you guys probably run like an operator foregrip with the weapon, but I think now you could probably run a strike foregrip so you don't have to lose any ADS speed. And having this new buffed ADS movement speed with this attachment might kind of, I guess, neutralize the speed that you once had, at least when it comes to strafing. So I'm not really sure. That's something I'm probably going to have to test out as well. So now we have a very interesting change, kind of similar to how it is with the ICR. The CX9 30 round mag now increases the lower arm multiplier from 1 times to 1.2 times. And they also added an 8% hipfire spread buff. And for the 50 round drum, it actually gives you 15% more damage range. So again, this is like the ICR where you could kind of choose how potent you want your weapon to be. So for instance, if you want to have more consistency, at least when it comes to four shotting in the first range, or at least, in close range quarters with the CX9, I think it's best to run the 30 round mag. But if you want to have more range in general, you could obviously just use the 50 round drum. So you could either have more consistency or you could have more range. A change like this is pretty welcoming, especially for me, because I usually use like the monolithic suppressor with whatever long barrel that's unsuppressed on the CX9. So I think now I could probably run the suppressor barrel as well as the 50 round drums, so I wouldn't have to lose a lot of ADS speed. But of course, if you're in a map like Shipment or any close quarters map, even Kill House, you could probably use the 30 round mag and get a lot of consistent forward taps if you do want to extend the range to its max using the monolithic or the suppressor barrel. So the Switchblade X9 got increased leg multiplier from 0.9 to 1 times, and they also improved the ADS spread from 30-13 to 26-13. So that's a pretty massive change for the Switchblade, I would say. I mean, the Switchblade wasn't really that accurate. I mean, they have been buffing it recently to make it more consistent with its four taps, but the accuracy is kind of what lets it down. So having a change like this is definitely welcoming, and having a lot more four tap consistency, at least in the first range or the second range as well. Having it to like 1 times actually kind of puts it, I think, above its prime. At least comparing it to how it was before, it stopped being the meta. So the Echo finally got buffed, but with its slug round. So they reduced the fire interval from 290 milliseconds to 188 milliseconds. That's almost 100 milliseconds. So the Echo may not be much to a lot of people. I mean, unless like you use it the way I do. But with the slug round, having a fire interval change that drastic might actually make it more effective than we think. I think with most slug shotguns, especially those that are semi-auto, I think you could actually two-tap anywhere. I mean, the Jack 12 does that. I think the Echo does that. I don't know if the Striker does that, but I know the Echo and the Jack 12 are able to two tap anywhere with slugs. So having a faster fire rate like this might actually be helpful. And I know this is gonna sound pretty stupid to say, but this might be like some sort of 8 round Odin alternative or something. And also, if you could maximize movement without losing any accuracy, you could probably make this a really fast two tap type of weapon, or like an alternative marksman rifle. That's the best way I could describe this. So I actually did a little bit of further research with the Echo, and yes, I could confirm that the slug round can kill basically anywhere on the map in 2 shots. Unfortunately, with the headshot multiplier, it's not really that different. I mean, you can't one tap anyways, but you could basically set up a very fast build for the Echo and just completely two tap people no matter where you're at. And this is going to be interesting because if the fire rate's going to get this significant amount of a buff, this could actually be a pretty good, I guess, secondary type of weapon. I mean, something that you could really piss off a lot of people with. Mind you, the Echo already shoots decently fast. I mean, even with the slug rounds right now, it shoots pretty fast. So if they're giving this a really huge fire interval buff with the slug rounds, I could only imagine how much faster this thing's gonna be. So the FR556 got a pretty interesting change. I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree, but they basically added a new damage value before 27. So in the first 13 meters, or at least 18 meters, if you actually decide to, max out the range, you're going to be able to three tap pretty consistently if you do land one chest shot and two shots to either the upper arm or the lower arm. The chest will do 36 damage, while the upper and lower arms are simply the same, so they will be 33. So one chest shot, 36 plus 33 plus 33 will be 102. So yes, you're going to be able to three tap pretty consistently with the FR556 if you do aim high enough. The headshot multiplier is also something keeping note of because it is 1.3 times. So basically, if it's the chest, the head, or anywhere on the arms, you're going to be able to three tap consistently up to 18 meters, and maybe a little bit more if you do want to add the long shot on top of the Ranger and the monolithic suppressor. So yes, that's something to keep in mind. So the MK2, believe it or not, did get a buff to the movement speed. So it went from 4.37 meters per second to 4.71, which I would say is a pretty significant change, I think, in terms of movement. But they also increased the lower arm multiplier from 1.4 times to the 1.5 times. So I decided to check this with the 30-06 rounds, the ones that basically let you shoot the weapon faster and aim faster. It doesn't really do anything there, but basically what this thing ultimately does is it could now basically one tap even further away if you decide not to use that magazine attachment. So basically just more consistency at very long ranges, which isn't really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. So the M1 Gran in BR only got improved damage profile from 48, 45, 36 to 48, 45, 42. So I guess it's going to be more consistent at long range. I don't know. I don't really use the weapon in BR at all. So you guys could judge for yourselves whether or not that's a good change. But anyways, let's actually move on to the other miscellaneous changes. So now for the changes to score streaks and everything else that are just not normal weapons, I just want to get this over with a little bit faster. So the Death Machine got reduced ammo capacity from 200 to 150. The Tempest got reduced ammo from 5 to 4. The Misdirection Device got reduced active duration from 24 seconds to 20 seconds. The Goliath has increased movement speed and ADS movement speed. The Gunship has increased ammo capacity of all guns. The 105 millimeter, it goes from 1 to 2. The 40 millimeter goes from 5 to 8, and the 25 millimeter is 40 to 60. The orbital laser got increased duration from 12 seconds to 14 seconds. Thermite increased max burn damage from 17 to 20. The quick strike increased dash distance from 15, 20, 25 to 15, 20, 35. They increased block duration from 5 seconds to 8 seconds, and they reduced the skill recharge speed, so it's going to take a little bit longer to unlock. For Defender, they increased the explosive damage resistance from 30, 40 to 40, 80. And in Igniter got increased damage per tick from 1015 to 1525, which I think a lot of people found questionable. Shockwave, they increased the knockback when upgraded, and for Spotter, they reduced bomb deploy time, and for Perk Greed, Red, Martyrdom got removed detonation time penalty. So basically, I think it's going to explode instantly, maybe, but it does get reduced damage and reduced damage radius. I think I'm misinterpreting the penalty for the detonation time. I think it's just gonna have the normal martyrdom detonation time, but it's gonna come at a cost of damage and the radius. So yes, if people are running perk read red and they have martyrdom on that extra slot, just be forewarned, it's not gonna be that effective. So yeah, there were about 4 pages of patch notes, and there were a lot of changes, which I'm actually happy to see. I know a lot of people wanted the USS-9 to be nerfed, like I said, and honestly, I think they're doing a lot of good changes to the other guns as well, giving the Switchblade and the ISO a little bit more, I guess, more accuracy. But I also like what they're doing with the FR556, the CX9, and the ICR, because now the FR556 now has 3-shot potential. I mean, really good 3-shot potential. And so does the ICR, depending on how you actually want to build it. The ICR and the CX9 are the ones that give the players a lot more options on how lethal they want their weapons to be. So again, like I said, the YKM suppressor barrel could be used well with the macro mag, or you could also use it with the 38 round to be a little bit quicker, but having to shoot at least in the upper body to get a 3-shot kill a lot better. It gives players a reason to use it and a little bit more of a reason to be more careful with how they actually build it. The one change I'm not too 100% certain on is the echo with the slug rounds. I'm not sure if they're going to make any more additional changes. Keep in mind, these are just the simple patch notes that we receive from Leaguers on Duty, so everything is subject to change. There's usually a hidden change here and there. So for the slug round, they might do something with it, but given that it's getting a massive fire interval buff like that, I could imagine this being a really, really overpowered choice. Especially in close to mid ranges where you could 2-tap basically anywhere. And if you're gonna be able to do that faster, well, yeah, that weapon's gonna be hell to go against. But yeah, overall, I would say the patch notes are pretty great. I can't wait to test out all the weapons and, see for myself what I actually want to use next season. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys found this video to be a little informative, and yeah, have a good day, guys.